Hi, this is James from Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to take a look at Mythic Mischief. This is a 1 to 4 player game published by IV Games. In this game, you're going to take on a faction of monsters, and you're going to go ahead and try to cause as much mischief in this magical school as possible. And the person who performs the most mischief by the end of the game wins. Let's go ahead down to the table here. I'll give you a general idea how to play the game and how the game flows, and then we'll come back and I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, so this is what a two-player setup of Mythic Mischief might look like. Now, this game could be played up to 1 to 4 players, and there's solo rules for this game to be able to play one player. Right now we're just going to show the 2-player, and there's actually special rules for 3 and 4. In the 3 and 4 player, you're going to have limited characters. You're not going to have all 3 out. So each faction has up to 3 characters that you can use throughout the game. And the whole point of this game is to, I'll put these score trackers on here, is to get as many mischief points as you can. For one with the most mischief points will win the game. The game will run over 2 phases. There is the before lunch and after lunch. So there's 2 phases of the game. You're going to set up the game in one of the pre-configured formats in the instruction manual. So you'll take a look and you'll pick one of these setups and use it. There are a way to do like a drafting style setup of the board also. That's in here, but I would highly suggest for your first couple games to just use the pre-set up ones over here. You're going to get one of the 4 different monster boards here, or groups. The base game comes with 4 different ones you can pick from. You have zombies, you have vampires, you have monsters, and you have wizards. Each of these have different special powers, and to start out the game, you're going to put dice on the board where these dots are. You also set the die to the value that's above here. And this one will be nothing. So as you go throughout the game, you're going to be trying to upgrade these, and the farther they go down the track, the higher numbers they can have on them. So it gives you more uses per ability. The players are going to go through and complete their turns, and these are the different things that you're going to do. You're going to do the Mythic Phase, which is going to be spending your actions. You're going to do the Tome Keeper phase, which is moving the Tome Keeper. And you're going to do the Cleanup phase, which is cleaning up your board. Then play is going to pass to the next player. So what are each of these Well, one other thing I just want to mention real quick is, I know how you said you set this up, but you also will flip over one of the before lunch card, and you're going to fill out the board based on this card. So I did forget to mention that. That's the other setup part. You're going to put tomes out where these little tome locations are. You're going to put out the first portal, second portal, third portal. We'll go over that in a second. And these are the different spawning places that you can use on the board. If a spawning place isn't available and you need to put one down, you can place your character anywhere on the board. All right, so what are you going to do on your turn? Well, the first thing you want to look at is actually where this Tome Keeper is going to go. He's going to go to the next lowest number. So right now it's 1. So he is going to move 4 spaces and try to move to 1. And he's always going to go the shortest direction. If there's 2 equally short directions, the active player gets to pick. So for right now, he could go 1, 2, 3, 4, or he could go 1, 2, 3, 4. Both are equal distance. So as of right now, let's say the purple player, which is the wizard, will get to go first. As of right now, one of his wizards is going to get captured. So what can you do? Well, there are several different options available on a player board. You're going to have move. You're going to have a faction-specific power, faction-specific power, faction-specific power. And then you're going to have a legendary power and an after-lunch special power. After-lunch special power is not available until after lunch. Then that becomes available. And the special power is not available until you put a tome on it. So for the first round, no one has a special ability available yet. Now, movement is the same for every single one. So for movement, the way movement works is you can't move through the Tome Keeper, you can't move through a bookshelf, and each movement is 1 point. And you can spend these points on here. When you spend them, you just turn it down to the next number. So I want to do 1 movement, I'm going to move here. The other thing important about movement is you see this rubble. This rubble is going to cost you 2 movement to go through. All right, so for this next part, we're going to go over each of the factions because the factions do different things. So let's just go over the vampire faction first. The vampire faction's next ability here that it can use, and whenever you spend this, you would drop down a one of the die. It has lore, and what lore will do is remove any ally orthogonic or diagonally adjacent to you 1 space closer to you. You also have rotate. This will allow you to rotate the bookshelves. Rules for the bookshelves. The bookshelves can't go on the outer edge, and they also can't block off a part of the board. So that's rules for everyone still. Then you have your normal distract. And for your normal distract, you could move the Tome Keeper 1 space. So you could move the Tome Keeper. That's the same for everyone else. The next thing that are going to be special are going to be your legendary ability, which is going to, in this case, be Trance. And what Trance is going to do is it allows all neighboring enemies, well, basically it's going to force all neighboring enemies to move 2 spaces in any direction. So you'll be moving them away or moving them towards the Tome Keeper. Your after lunch special, which gets unlocked in the after lunch time period, is starting after lunch, you can collect 1 blood by moving one of your mythics through an enemy space during your turn. At the end of your turn, for every blood you spend, boost 1 additional die. So we're going to talk about boosting your die here. And that is very important. You can save this blood for other turns. So that is the vampires. There's going to also be the monsters. So the monsters here have a special ability called Throw. So the Throw ability on here, they can move any ally or enemy from a neighboring space to the exact opposite neighboring space, which is pretty cool. They also have Barge. Barge will rotate a bookshelf into the opposite adjacent corner. So this is sort of like rotate. You have a legendary ability called Intimidate. Intimidate, neighboring enemies will move 2 spaces towards the Tome Keeper. So run away for you towards the Tome Keeper. After lunch special, you have Trap. Starting after lunch, you may drop a trap token on an adjacent enemy once per turn. The enemy is trapped and can't move off the trap for 1 turn. So they're going to get this little trap token with theirs. That's the monsters. There's 2 factions left. The other one's going to be the zombies. The zombies have Infect. And Infect lets them move an adjacent ally or enemy diagonally 1 space. They also have Toss, which basically just lets them throw a bookshelf to the opposite side of the room. So I could go like, wow, something like that. They have a legendary ability Stench, which a neighboring Tome Keeper will move 1 space directly away from you, orthogonically or diagonally. And then their after lunch special is starting after lunch, you may drop a decay token on under a zombie once per turn. The decay, whenever an enemy enters the space with a decay, they must move into an empty adjacent space. You cannot move them onto clutter, and decay is removed only when it's used. So they will have these cool decay tokens. Now, my favorite for this base game is going to be the wizards. Wizards are really cool. So you have a couple really neat things you can do to move things into the Tome Keeper. And I'm really excited about this one. Warp basically just lets you switch places with an ally or enemy. Really helpful. You can use slide bookshelves, so you can slide them. That's what you're going to do. And then your legendary ability is Teleport. Move a wizard to an available space in the library. So you can just go anywhere you want. I really love that. Your after lunch special is going to be Portals, starting after lunch, you may drop a portal token on a wizard space. Portals are considered adjacent to each other, so you can just jump around the board. Wizards are really good with just flying around the board. All right, so that's different factions, and that's what they do. You can use these abilities to do cool things, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to move your opponent into those spots and move your way. So instead of me doing one movement here, what I could have done as the wizard, so I was back here, is I could have used my warp ability and moved him into place. So I would have marked my warp down to there. The next thing I would do is, I know that it's going to be going back this way. I would start moving my guys out of position so they be harder for my opponent to move the Tome Keepers into place. Now what I'm going to do at the end of my turn is, or after I'm done with the Mythic Phase, I'm going to go into the Tome Keeper phase. The Tome Keeper is going to move, and he's going to go his 4 spaces. He'll make it here. So he's going to take this guy out. He'll move this token. If he had extra spaces, he would have started moving back towards 2. And that's it for the Tome Keeper phase. The last part is going to be the cleanup phase. And the cleanup phase, basically what you're going to do is you are going to take any of the ones that you've used during the turn. You're going to shift them farthest left. Then you're going to take any tomes you picked up your turn. I didn't pick any up, but I'm going to use this for an example. And you can upgrade abilities. So for here, this is going to be reset to a 1. That's great, but this is still a 0. So I'm probably going to upgrade this so I can start using this distract ability, so I can move that Tome Keeper, because that's super helpful. And if I had a second tome, maybe I'll move it on here. The last thing I get to do is boost one ability, and that's simply just moving one of them over to the right. Then I'm going to look at the columns they're at and set the value to what the columns say. That's it. The other player is going to go. You're going to keep on going until the Tome Keeper gets to the 3rd portal, spot. Once the Tome Keeper gets to the 3rd spot, you're going to go into after lunch, and you're going to clear out all the tomes and reset up the board to match this. Now he'll have a new movement of 3, and he has 3 new spaces that he needs to go to. After that, the game will end. Whenever you knock out an opponent moving the Tome Keeper, like I did for, I took out one of the green monsters, you'll move up, I will move up 1 mischief point. If one of your own get knocked out, then you lose a mischief point. Another thing to point out is at the beginning of your turn, if you have any characters that were knocked out, you could pick one of the unoccupied spaces with a circle and place your character back down. If there's no spaces left on the board that are legal for your character to put, you can put it anywhere that is open on the board. And that, in a gist, is how you play Mythic Mischief. Let's go ahead back up to the table here, and I'll give you my final thoughts on this game. So I really, really like Mythic Mischief. So a couple things I just want to bring up real quick first. I don't think I was very clear on how the game goes through the different rounds. On the first half of the game, so you have 2 halves in the game. In the first half of the game, you're waiting for the Keeper of Tomes to get to the 3rd spot. Once it gets to the 3rd spot, then after lunch occurs. And then you're waiting for him to get to the 3rd spot again, and the game ends. And at that point, the person with the most points wins. So a couple things I want to point out real quick, and we're going to start with component quality. Ivy Games has ridiculously awesome component quality. They take a lot of care in their games themselves. And again, the same thing that happened with multiple other games, their inserts are amazing. They have never failed me on making wonderful inserts to actually hold everything in it. These are inserts that are on the level of, I would actually buy the insert for the game later on if it didn't come with it, because they're that good. A lot of companies try inserts and they're meh. These are amazing. They fit perfectly. Nothing gets jostled around. They put a lot of thought into making sure the inserts work properly for their game. The miniatures are really highly detailed. The little tome pieces are really cool. I can't wait to paint this game. It's going to look amazing on the table. Just so component quality is just through the roof for Ivy Games and of any other games, but specifically Mythic Mischief we're talking about. Gameplay is fast and easy to teach. This is a great like skirmishish game. I know you're not really fighting, but you are. You're moving people into position to get them knocked out, and you have to strategically try to move yours into places that makes it hard for the opponent to put them in the path of the tome's keeper. The asymmetric powers on each of the factions are awesome. I love the legendary ability you can get, and the after school special, and the special abilities give you the normal special abilities that you can use as your actions for the turn. Give you a little bit of an edge over everyone else, but they get the same edge, so it's really cool. It makes you feel like you're slightly overpowered, but you're not. So if you're looking for a really fun skirmish style game, now again, not fighting, but you are strategically trying to outmaneuver your opponent, I would highly recommend checking out Mythic Mischief. Thank you for watching.